I'm Rob Kirkpatrick, and this is Kirkpatrick and Company. Kicking things off, a leader who's helped shape how Acadiana shows up on the national stage. Anita Begnaud has spent her career telling the stories of our region, building connections, and driving real impact through community leadership. She's back home and making an impact for the Community Foundation of Acadiana. Anita Begnaud on Kirkpatrick and Company. Anita Begnaud, I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, Rob. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to the vault.
Thank you. What a cool space.
This is like my adult treehouse kind of spot.
It's on the ground though, which is good.
It is on the ground, so no one can fall out. It's behind locked doors,
Yeah.
so I can just leave all my stuff. But I've never known quite what it felt like to be a zoo animal till I moved the studio in here because people stop by all the time.
Oh, really?
They don't talk to me. Like, they don't talk
They
to
just
me.
look at you?
They look and they talk about me through a door that has openings, so I can hear it. So
That's awesome.
anyway, this new venture I have been sitting on, it's funny, the concept of it goes from before you left, and now you're back, and you are the guest on the first episode, so I'm so excited that you're here. Kirkpatrick and Company has been something I've had in the back of my head. In 2020, I think we were all super burnt out, I guess is probably the good umbrella word, but a lot of things. Annoyed, stressed,
Uncertain.
are we going to live through this? It was just weird. And so that's when I left news, and you and I spoke dozens of times, got to really know each other through roles that you had, whether it was with One Acadiana or with Downtown. And I left feeling like, I don't know of any groundbreaking story. I didn't break anything huge that changed. Someone might argue with me and be like, well, no, this story actually changed things, but when it's you can hardly tell. But I do have this really awesome network of friends who I've met and seen grow and seen do really cool things in the community. You left and you're back. And people who are just in different roles. It's just fun when you sort of reach, all your friends are doing really cool things. Maybe they were just the support person when I talked to them, but now actually making moves. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on first, because you left and now you're working with Community Foundation here in Acadiana. Let's kind of go back to there. I want to really start with welcome home, because this is where you're from.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? What does welcome home feel like?
Oh man, it's a little overwhelming, to be honest. It's the place I've lived most of my life, except for the 2 years that my family and I lived in Virginia. And so it's very familiar in a lot of ways. But, I have perspective now from living elsewhere that kind of layers on to how I feel about this place. And so, missed it tremendously while we were gone. Learned a lot while we were gone. And the way that Lyle, my husband, and I have kind of talked about this experience is we were so deeply rooted in this community, in Acadiana, in our culture. For me, professionally and civically, for him in the music world. And it's like we ripped up those roots and we tried to plant our tree somewhere else. And the roots just couldn't take the way that they were. And we were so used to them being so deep and intermingled with other people's roots. And so it's felt a little raw to leave and come back. But it's felt very warm and welcoming. And, it still happens. It happened this morning. I've been home for 4 months and someone's like, I haven't seen you since you got back yet. Hi, welcome back.
Yeah.
And so it just feels, it feels like, we were missed and our presence was missed. We see that in our personal and professional lives. And that just feels good. Like we belong here.
We have this conversation a lot because, as you know, we moved away for 6 years, lived in 2 different cities, and we continued to come back. And there are some friendships that I have that actually did not become as strong as they are today until we left. And we would, and you get this, you grew up in Church Point, you still have family here, obviously, and a lot of people who want to see you. We would have to make these covert trips back.
Yeah.
And have to tell my mother-in-law, do not tell everyone we're here, because we can't make it stop.
See everyone while we're here. Right.
But what we found was the people who we made time for, who we would be don't, also like our family, don't tell anyone we're here.
Yeah.
But we're coming over for dinner, especially once we had the girls. And so we would come back home. They would stay with my mother-in-law and we would have dinner. And we were like, why didn't we ever do this before? Because we were just different people at that point, you know?
So two examples of that, and I can use names or not use names.
Use them.
You tell me.
Yes.
One person that became a really close friend from a distance is Brandon Journay. Most of the world knows him as DJ Digital, but I know him as Brandon.
I don't know that either.
We're you know, both really good friends with Brandon, and he was someone that every time I came in, we had breakfast or I popped by the studio, and we just had real talk. And that friendship became so much deeper with me being gone. And I'm so grateful that that experience, I don't know, just something about it. Like, he was someone that always made time for me and me for him. And, you know, we're both very busy people. So that was really special. And then
he doesn't even make time for me a lot of the time.
Sorry.
Lucky.
Brandon, hi, we need to hang out again. It's been a minute. You made time for me.
Time.
Well, I was gone. But he definitely deepened that friendship. And then, you know, friendships with a certain segment of people and like that cross-pollination over the years. Lyle works half-day Fridays, and now I do too, which is a lovely thing, by the way. And
you should work your way up to no Friday. Just work your way out. You'll get there.
Maybe one day. But he would always go and have a drink with Sammy Parbu on Friday afternoons. They both had the time to do that on Friday afternoons, and I was always so jealous. And since we've moved back, every Friday, and it's like different people kind of come in and out, but we make sure to make the time to do it every Friday. We only do it for an hour. We still have the responsibilities, you know, of a young kid at home to go pick her up from school and everything, but we get together and we've been playing dominoes, which I'm like sneaky good at, which is like fun for me. I like to be good at things.
But isn't it? It's so back to basics.
It really is.
Because it's a lot of those things. I do think when you sort of reach that point, and a lot of it is being intentional. Like, I'll tell you, Leadership Louisiana, it happened at a time in my life where I was starting a new company.
Sure.
I actually started it after Leadership started.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I had the guts to do it, but I needed those guys and girls because, like, they were the coworkers.
Right.
You know, because I was going from a very high touch team and metrics and everything else to now, like, well, Rob, if you don't get out of the bed today, like,
it's on
just
you.
don't.
Yeah.
You just don't do any work and you don't get paid, you know?
Yeah.
But I find that that's like such a fascinating part of it, because when you really strip everything down and titles don't mean anything, you know, if we just stripped off the organizations you worked for. I mean, you've been a CEO, you have, you know, got moved to Virginia and had a big title there, and now you're coming back and you're managing a fund. And none of that really matters because you're still Anita.
Right.
You're still Anita from Church Point. And I think that's what I really wanted to do with Kirkpatrick and Company, is to really talk about why we're all here, because there are other places to go. As you know, you were gone. And sometimes even I have to be reminded that maybe the cookie cutter job that we had in corporate America and everything else, as routine and reliable as it is, still did not check all the boxes of fulfillment.
Right.
And so now we're back, we're doing these things. And that's really where Kirkpatrick and Company started. Like, this is us, you know, getting time out to be with each other, how we would at Carpe Diem across the street, or, you know, we just happen to be recording it here. So I'm happy that you're back. I think I'm maybe part of the majority of people that know you that are still like, but what are you actually doing?
Sure.
So spotlight's on you. What are you doing? And I know it's supporting all the things we've already been talking about, because how could it not, Anita?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the thing about the culmination of all the different things I've done in my career leading up to right now is finding ways to make an impact. I love this place. I'm a very place-based person from like a culture perspective, but like I didn't understand the geography of place until I left and came back. So, you know, I think that's like the foundation of every role that I've had has been about improving a place that I love. And so that's the common theme in the various roles that I've held. And how I kind of like measure my success is through impact to the place that I love.
Yeah.
And so what I'm doing is something that has never been done before in our community, and it's unprecedented generally. So it's a startup, kind of like Kirkpatrick Brands. You know, you're building it from the ground up, but you're leveraging all the years of experience you've had, the relationships that you have, the knowledge that you built. So I'm working with the Community Foundation. Missy Andrade, who runs the Community Foundation, and I worked together at One Acadiana during very formative years of our lives. We stayed in touch throughout the years. We kind of like operated in the same ecosystem
Yeah.
throughout the majority of our
And
career.
I will say, as an aside, a formative part for a new organization because it was a chamber of commerce.
Yeah, that's
Then
right.
moved to an 8 parish organization, and it is rocking and rolling now. So
Right.
you've seen something pretty much come from the ground up.
For sure. And, Missy joined the Community Foundation going on 4 years ago now, which has a really strong history in our community, a fantastic legacy of connecting generous people to good causes, important things that we want to see done in our community. But, Missy is a transformational leader, and I like to see myself in that, like, too. We share that in common. And so, people were starting to say, what else can the Community Foundation be doing in our community? How can we help take Acadiana to the next level even? And so Missy was brought in to help figure that out from the Community Foundation seat in our community. And she's doing an incredible job. She's built a great team. I'm privileged to get to be a part of it. And one of the things that's come up recently is how do we think about applying external funding to these internal causes that we all care about and we want to see really happen? And so what I'm doing is managing an initiative of the Community Foundation. It's called the Lafayette Resource Development Initiative. We haven't like fully done a branding exercise yet, so it's very technical and very on the nose.
Yeah.
And the whole premise is that national foundations fund projects in communities all over the country and across the globe, just like we want to see done in Lafayette. But they haven't applied their generosity in a big way to the city of Lafayette, to our community. A recent exception is the great news that Lafayette Consolidated Government secured $1 million grant from Bloomberg
Yeah.
through the Mayor's Challenge. We want to see more of that happening in the city of Lafayette and applied to quality of place and quality of life initiatives that will make this an even better place to live, work, raise a family, start a business, move a business, make an investment. And so what I'm doing is figuring out how to assess the national landscape. What are national foundations funding, where and why and how? Look at the internal landscape. What are the projects, programs, initiatives that we want to have happen in our community? And where are those intersections? And then taking that information, that knowledge, and starting to build some relationships with the people that power those national foundations and say, I'd love to talk to you about what you're doing, why you do it, what you care about. And then I'd love to share the story of Lafayette with you to see if there's overlap there, and to see if we could together figure out how you, National Foundation X, Kresge, Mellon, MacArthur, Ford, Doris Duke, etc.,
Yeah.
could apply your generosity to our community, because we have a lot of great things going for us. We have a very distinct culture that's really leverageable, I think. And we haven't figured out how to unlock your interest in us yet in a big way. So help us figure out if there is a way to do that, because we would love to accelerate some of these projects that we want to see done in our community through your generosity.
I think it is so important because what was it, probably 10 years ago now that Lafayette was named the happiest city in the United States.
Yeah.
And just started pointing to different things. And it was that kind of intersection of family and culture. At that time, we had fiber that was just sort of getting kicked off.
Yep.
And we had CGI that was coming to town. So we had a lot of those things. And, sometimes I'm trying to think about a nice way to say it. Sometimes it's hard for me not to think we get in our own way, kind of by limiting what we think we can do. And instead, we
Sure.
have to go to other places and almost see how something else is built to say, where this would work is here. And I do think it takes someone like you to come in and say, like, no, this is actually where it would fit. Like, not pie in the sky, like some actual things that just feel good. Because I'll say it about Youngsville all the time. When I drive into Youngsville on the one road, I'm just kidding, Karen. When I drive into Youngsville,
We love you, Ken.
I get there and I just feel like it all makes sense. Everything just seems, once you get to that area around Sugar Mill Pond, which was the big kind of like initial investment construction project that was right there and kind of like the new Youngsville, then everything grew up around it.
Yeah.
And you have the sports complex on the other side. You have Rouse's on one side. And now, like, very quickly, things that are like, well, Youngsville doesn't have this. Check. Like, Youngsville has Whataburger. Like, Youngsville has Waffle House. And there are still some things that they need, but it took like someone taking the first step to see it. And now look what's happened.
So in a lot of ways, like, it is curated, it is planned. Lafayette is a much older city than Youngsville, came up in a different era. But your point about applying lessons is so important. This community, Lafayette and Acadiana, has desired to look at best practices, take lessons from other communities, and try to apply them back here for many years. I mean, we go back to before One Acadiana, we talked about earlier, was even formed, and a small group of people went to Oklahoma City to learn about how they utilized their MAPS program to make catalytic projects happen in their community. And if you think about One Acadiana's perspective of let's go canvas another place, learn from them, and bring those lessons back, we've been to Charleston, Greenville, Lexington, Pensacola, Grand Rapids. I missed that trip. I still have FOMO about missing that trip. This year
Let's
we're
go
going
together because I have clients in
Grand Rapids with you.
and they love it.
And One Acadiana's taken a group to Chattanooga this year.
Yeah.
Lots of lessons to learn from Chattanooga. I think we're getting to a point where we are figuring out how to not think about just like the small wins that could be applicable, but we're starting to say, well, wait a second. These communities have made multi tens of millions of dollars of investments in certain industries or certain types of infrastructure or certain destination assets and amenities. We can too. And that's really exciting for me. And so people ask me like, what's different about when you left 2 years ago? And the truth is a lot is the same, but a lot is also different. It's kind of hard to like put into words, but
Maybe like the same, but it's refined.
Yeah.
Or maybe we've just grown up.
One of the things that I am so excited about is the alignment amongst all of the different government, civic, and economic development organizations. We've been talking about the same things for a long time, but I see those folks sitting around a table and saying, where do we want to go as a community and how are we going to get there? How can we support each other? How can your win be our win? How can we leverage these moments of momentum collectively? So that is different. That is refreshing for me. And I can tell you, like, that is what external people who are making business decisions, the national foundations I'm working to build relationships with kind of from the ground up are looking for, is that that alignment, because communities need to prove that they're proven ground, and they need to prove that ideas and initiatives are scalable, because companies want to grow. And, foundations in my situation, they want ideas to be replicable, right? So that provenness is really important. And I think we're getting to a point where we've proven some smaller scale things. And it depends who you compare yourself to. Like, we've done some really big things in this community, like the University of Louisiana at Lafayette as a Carnegie R1 institution. That's huge. I think part of what we're figuring out together right now is like, but how do we leverage that? How does that beget the next thing and the next thing and the next thing?
And how do the people who are already here appreciate that? Like, I think one of the coolest things with the R1 designation, and it's probably such a small line item on the marketing budget about this, but when you get to the airport, you see the signs in the airport. So not only is it just the R1, it's the impact of the university on the whole area.
Absolutely.
I think that's so fascinating. Last week, you and I were at the LFT Fiber Connectivity Summit, and one of the things that came up multiple times is, like, we don't have mountains to ski on. We don't have a beach. We don't have, the Frio River. We don't have a lot of the things that people travel there for, but they come for the culture.
Right.
And they come to I love being downtown because I love seeing people with a map and they've made it all the way to my block. And I have to be like, go 4 blocks over. I'm starting to like name these places because we just don't appreciate them, I think, because they've always been here for us. And I think the understanding is probably the biggest thing. You mentioned, the work that the economic developers are doing. How long did we think that people are confused about what the difference of LIDA and One Acadiana was? And like, now that we see the work that Mandy's doing at LIDA and that Troy and team are doing at One Acadiana, it's all working towards the same goal. It's just going about it 2 different ways. I mean, Troy, I go to bed sometimes thinking about shovel-ready projects because how many times did you say that? And he would come on and say that. And once you start to realize, like, no, we have land everywhere, but how much is ready for development? And I think that's really Fascinating.
Yeah, so that's a really good segue to like, what is the essence of what all these different entities are trying to do as it pertains to encouraging additional investment in our community, whether it be like opening a company or, investing tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure. We are all trying to prove that we can de-risk investment for companies, for foundations, for internal philanthropists. Like, why would I give, or why would I want to see money go toward this? What meaningful impact is it going to have? And how can I make sure that it's not going to be too risky for me to make that sort of investment? That is, to me, like in the middle of the Venn diagram. And I've kind of graduated my thinking from like trying to force things into a Venn diagram and more so like concentric circles, and like they're all kind of bumping up against each other, and we're all working collectively, each doing our own part, but working collectively to try to prove that Lafayette is a good place to invest in. Your time, your resources, bringing your family here.
Well, because I was going to ask that, because you talked about the impact and the need for outside funding. Like, why is it important? Why is it important that we do go to those? I mean, other than the fact that there is capital that's out there to be given, why is that outside investment important?
So the first point that I want to make is there's capital to be given, right? And so we want to make sure that Lafayette can get its fair share, because the resources are out there and somebody's getting them. We want to be competitive and we want to be able to win. And then I think secondly, it's about growing the economy. So when I worked at One Acadiana, that was my first like senior level role from an economic development perspective. And we had the benefit of being regional in scope, not super local. And so that's important.
And with 8 parishes, something's almost always going on.
That's right.
I mean,
And
you have
very
lots.
different, but there's a
Yeah.
lot going on. But Jason Kuby, who was the original CEO from the conversion to the chamber, or excuse me, from the chamber to One Acadiana, he would always say, like, we want to grow the pie itself. We're not thinking about like slicing the pieces differently. We want to make sure that the pie is actually getting bigger. We're bringing in resources that then export out goods, services, ideas, technology that then bring back investment into our communities. So the pie keeps growing. And so you asked the question about like why the outside investment, because it's growing the pie. We
Interesting.
want to see it continue to grow so that we can have a higher level of quality of life. We can have a higher level of quality of place, because when we compare ourselves to other cities that we travel to and we're like, man, wouldn't it be great if we had this or we had that, or we could be more like this community? You're talking about tens of millions of dollars of investment in parks, in greenways, in bike trails, in transportation, multimodal transportation opportunities. So if we want to see projects of that scale in our community, I think we have to think about the capital stack, including some amount of external funding.
One thing that you talk about, and as you're saying it, I was thinking about some of these areas are like Lafayette proper in the way that it seems like almost every square inch has already been developed. And there are a few pockets here and there that's, some land, whether it's out on Ambassador or maybe once you go further down Ambassador, there's pieces of land there. But some of these other cities that have done green space, they've taken land that had a building on it at one point, or had a complex, or had, I don't know, 20 acres, and turned it into that. And so I think that, I don't know, is that like a hard argument to make? Because obviously someone will look at that and say, well, actually, you can make so much more money off the real estate that's on it, whether it's a business or that. And who knows, maybe that's another argument for the outside funding is
You're asking
someone else.
a really good question. And, I have 1,000 thoughts running through my head, and I
With
want
this
to.
podcast, there's no time
I
limit.
wanna
Go for it.
I wanna be sure that, like, I'm really clear that the Lafayette Resource Development Initiative that I'm responsible for managing is about the city of Lafayette.
Yeah.
This is the first time in my career that, like, the city of Lafayette only is in, like, the crosshairs of my focus. I care deeply about the Acadiana region. I want our entire area to succeed, but I am like hyper focused on the city of Lafayette. You talked about a couple of interesting things, like, every square inch being developed. I mean, get up in the air. That's just frankly not true.
Really?
And like even if you just look at downtown,
Okay.
and I don't want to pigeonhole myself into to just thinking about downtown. That
Yeah.
was my role for 5 years and 4
You
months.
know it.
So I know it.
Yeah.
But like there's plenty of developable land within our downtown. Some of the challenge though, back to your point about like, is it enough? Is it big enough? Do we have enough of it to like make an impact? Some of the challenges, our block sizes are really small in our downtown, just generally. And we don't have enough vacant parcels like in a row to do a project at scale for an
Yeah.
external developer to want to come in and make an investment, because it's got to scale, it's got to pencil out. But we do have some opportunities. And if we dream big and we think long term, things like moving the jail out of our downtown could unlock enough real estate that's contiguous to be able to do some large scale investments that could really change the mindset from this property's fine as it is,
Yeah.
to I want this to be something bigger and more. And then if you like scale that up and out, I think about the entirety of the urban core. So from Holy Rosary to the Horse Farm, like Ben Berthelot from LCVC says, there's a lot of developable property
Yeah.
within that footprint. There's a lot of things we could do, small scale, medium scale, and even big scale, but it's going to require us to think differently about our city and have a vision that doesn't have all these parameters and limits around it. Like, who do we want to be as a place? What kinds of amenities do we want for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren? What's going to make us an attractive place for business to want to invest, and not think, well, but there's already a building right there. So we're very landmark driven,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't think like a map of roads. I think like, well, on the corner of those two streets is that thing. That's the go to that thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And if you think about like how people perceive real estate in Lafayette, like the building at the corner in the front of the Grand Theater, how many different restaurants has that been? And people are like, oh, well, that can't be anything because it's tried 5 different things and it's never worked.
Yeah.
Um,
But a stone's throw away, you have Jet Coffee.
that is just blowing and going. It's incredible.
It's
And
right there.
park right next
Yeah.
door that thousands of people are visiting a week.
And you can't tell me if Jet didn't just make a different choice about building an existing coffee shop and using that space, they wouldn't have been just as successful because you have a successful brand that works.
Right. So
Yeah.
I used to work with this guy called Jim Bourgeois, and he's still a friend.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about Jim in a
Okay,
second.
we
But
can.
yes,
Did y'all do Leadership Louisiana together?
he didn't, but he
No,
was one
okay.
of my favorites from the beginnings of One Acadiana.
He's like the sassiest person. It's fantastic. And he would always say, you got to give the people what they want. And I think that's hard for us in Lafayette. Like, we hold on to like weird traditions sometimes, but we also poo-poo new things, and we say, well, that can't work there, or that would never happen over in this side of town.
Yeah.
So in my mind, like, part of the evolution of Lafayette to continue to grow, continue to be an attractive place, continue to thrive is like, maybe it's like loosening up a little bit and being like, what could we be? Like being a little bit more creative, imaginative. I was just talking to a friend who lives in Virginia about how we have a hard time um, eh, understanding how to experience a place, a thing, an idea. Like, we really have to help people with experiential marketing.
Mhm.
Like, we really have to show them how to have an experience. That's a big part of what I did downtown was like, let me put these string of things together for you and build it out for you so you can understand how to use this downtown
Yeah.
differently.
But do you think that maybe it could be a generational thing that now as there are younger people, even younger than you and me, maybe even like the kids who are in college right now who choose to stay here because, I mean, let's be honest, there's remote work opportunities and it's
Sure.
what keeps keeping people here. They might be a little bit more open to like, yes, we can have this tradition, but also something else at the same time. I don't want an answer on that right now because we got to take a break. Special thanks to Catalyst Bank, by the way, which, speaking of investment, they've invested big in me to tell these stories and to open up my door here at the Vault to talk to my friends who are doing really cool things and why everything is so important here in our area and why it's worth the investment. So let me tell you a little bit about Catalyst Bank, and we're back after this. Kirkpatrick and Company is brought to you by Catalyst Bank. If you're looking for a bank that actually knows Acadiana, you want Catalyst Bank. They've been serving the community for over 100 years, and that's not just history, that's trust. Catalyst Bank is built for local businesses, for local families, for real life. Their mission is simple: be a catalyst for economic growth right here at home. You get the best of both worlds: big bank technology, mobile access, and digital tools that keep up with you, and something you don't always get anymore: real hometown service. Call a branch, a real person answers. Need a loan? Decisions are made locally. That means faster answers and more flexibility. From commercial lending to personal banking, they're here with you for every step. Catalyst Bank, fueling business, improving lives. Visit catalystbank.com or stop by a local branch today. Thank you very much to Catalyst Bank for taking a risk on me. I mean, maybe I'm not that risky of a person.
You're not risky at all.
But anyway, I just love everything they're doing at Catalyst Bank, and I think it's so cool. When you look at their social media, there is more content about what's going on in the communities they serve than
Yeah.
anything about banking or that you should bank with them and anything else. But
So if I could just add to that,
yeah,
Lafayette is a place of like everything's connected, right? So Joe Zanko was the chair of One Acadiana one of the years that I worked there. And Blair Green, who's over their marketing and communications, was a colleague of mine. And she actually was recruited back to Lafayette because of a connection of Rob Eddy, my boss, having with Jason and saying, like, this woman wants to come back home. She's fabulous. I know her family. And then Rob recruited me back to Lafayette. So Blair and I were both recruited back to Lafayette by Rob, essentially.
yeah.
But they're great people. And what I love about the way that they approach how they invest in the community, not just getting you to invest in the bank, but they invest in the community, is they're looking for those opportunities to tell really powerful, compelling, and positive stories about what Lafayette's doing right. And so kudos to Joe and Blair for their leadership, for investing in you, Rob, because I think you're one of our best storytellers in our community, and it's just awesome that they're powering this opportunity.
Okay, I want to go into the Begnaud household when this
Okay.
opportunity comes up. You're in Virginia and you have the option to go back. And like I said, I saw you a ton of times, you coming back. So, that trip from Virginia back to Lafayette, much different than Atlanta to Lafayette,
Yeah.
which is what we used to do. But how was that conversation?
So it's 2 plane rides, in case anyone was wondering.
Okay.
Atlanta to Lafayette is one of them, but you got to get from Richmond to Atlanta. Um, Lyle and I had started talking about, like, what do we want in our lives for the longer term? We have a little girl. She's going to be 4 at the end of April.
Which is crazy. Seems like you were
Yeah,
pregnant like
I
3
know.
months ago.
So we moved up there when she was, like 20 months old. And, we loved Richmond. We loved the city, the walkability, the activity, the environment, the weather was
Yeah.
awesome. They had 4 seasons.
Yes.
And my job was incredible. It was super interesting, fun, challenging. I was learning a lot. But we were coming home a lot and just saying, like, something's missing. And it really was about, like, the people and the culture. And so when I first started having conversations with Missy Andrade, who I get to work with today, about the opportunity to come home, Lala and I were just like, what do we want for our lives and with our lives? And it's also interesting, like, having a kid, just
Yep.
changes your perspective so much and teaches you so much about, like, the simplicity of, like, what's important in life. So Alzina started pretending, like, in playtime, to get on an airplane and come home to Lafayette. That's how she said it when she was little. So she could see her granny and her pop and her cousins. And we were like, man, like, from the mouth of babes. Maybe we should start thinking about turning our ship back toward Lafayette. And what excited me about this particular opportunity with the Community Foundation to run the Lafayette Resource Development Initiative was that it's new, it's different, it's something we haven't done yet as a community. We've looked at other communities that have benefited from national foundations making investments in them and said, man, it would be great if we could have that thing that Chattanooga has or that
Yeah.
thing that Charleston has. But we haven't figured out how to unlock that external funding yet to help us to reach our potential. And so when the opportunity to try that, to wake up every day and think about, like, what's great about our community and what could make it better and what do we want to see happen here, and how could we tell the story of Lafayette to try to bring resources to make it real, to make it
Yeah.
possible. It just felt like it was the right next step for me to take all the lessons I've learned and the passion I have for this place and my belief in it, the vision I have for it, and try to help make it become a reality by doing something new and different.
And look,
It was just like serendipitous.
there's always a visionary. Like someone has to do it to take the risk. I mean, off the top of my head, I think about E.B. Brooks,
Absolutely.
that really took what was Save the Horse Farm that has now become something that, they're building another parking lot right now because the parking lot that they built initially, it is always full. And now there's a lawn that people can park. I
Yeah.
mean, if you want to look at something that is obviously adding to quality of life and really a cross section, you go there are all sorts of people doing all sorts of things. You go there on a Saturday, you might see a wedding. There's going to be,
I went out last Saturday. There was a wedding.
yes, there's weddings. I went,
What else you got?
okay, obviously you have the farmer's market.
Yeah.
That always happens. So it's got to move into the new space. Um, I was actually there last week where there was a Lunar New Year, like pop up.
Yeah.
That
Love that.
And it was on the deck under the treehouse, and kids were just playing and like running through this, and they were just all these tables set up of people just making lanterns and
Yep,
everything else.
yep.
It's just such a cool place. So I'm not asking you to reveal anything secret, but like is something like Monkus Park an area of like where you could have a crossroads
Yeah.
you're doing with
That's such a
LDI?
great question. So, yeah, the answer is yes.
LRDI, by the way, I got
LRDI.
yeah.
Um, I did
Lordy.
it wrong.
It's got
Lordy.
Lordy.
Lordy. There we go.
That's it.
We'll never forget now. Um, yes, absolutely. Monkus Park is. So, I talked earlier about doing a landscape analysis externally and doing a landscape analysis internally and thinking about how to match those two up. Monkus Park kind of sits at the middle of those two things. National foundations make tremendous investments across the country in green spaces, in that intersection of like wellness, quality of life, connectivity. Monkus is a great example of that. Another thing about Monkus is it's proven, right? So it's 5-ish years old now, fully formed. E.B. Brooks, shout out to E.B., one of my great friends, for her vision and her tenacity and determination, and many others. But E.B. really spearheading that. It is proven. Thousands of people show up to Monkus Park every week. And Monkus Park can be more and can be doing more. So I was able to see their vision for the back 50 acres. I think it coincides really well with the vision for some national foundations. So I've already been having conversations with some consultants who have done work with Monkus Park. I've had several conversations with JP. I'm following up with him this upcoming week to tell him about some of the research I've done and how I think it could be applied. One of the things, kind of going back to something you said earlier, is like, I'm not sure we dream big enough. I'm not sure we ask big enough. I'm not sure we posture ourselves as recipients of some of that level of funding I'm talking about, like, $1 million, $10 million. And so I really want to help JP understand what national foundations have funded and what he's trying to do and how those match up. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity. And then, Rob, to kind of broaden out and to kind of say it like Mayor President Monique Boulay says, Monkus is a great example of activation in our community, and we need to figure out how to take that concept and apply it in more places around Lafayette. Like, how do we activate more places? Use that as an example. And I love to hear that because, one, it's true, and two, I want to figure out how we connect those, I call them nodes, connect those nodes of activity and energy and momentum so that we create a system of great things that are happening, a system of compelling places that you want to be and enjoy. And we create, again, back to that experiential marketing. I can do this and this and this and this on a Saturday, and it's well connected and it's safe, and I understand how to use the spaces and how they connect to one another. You also talked about real estate earlier, and so I'm just going to try to like kind of bring this all together for you about developable land.
Yeah.
In the urban core, there's some prime real estate that is developable. And I think we have the right leadership in place at institutions like the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and LIDA and SOLA CC to come together and say, we talk about growing enrollment at our university. That's one of the new president, Ramesh Kularu's top goals, is to grow enrollment by more than 10,000 students over the next decade. So my question is, where are they going to live? And part of
because there's already issues with the current number of students that can't live on campus.
Right. Part of the way to answer that question is not through single family homes in the same streets, because those are all full too, right? But it's about leveraging real estate in the urban core to build multifamily, to build
Interesting.
housing at all scales of resources. So mixed income, mixed use housing in the urban core. And, all of those partners that we've been talking about throughout this conversation are having those conversations. They're talking about that and saying, how do we leverage real estate and institutional depth and trust and resources in the community through banking institutions, hopefully like Catalyst Bank and others, to make that vision for more urban housing a reality. If you think about the Downtown Action Plan, the whole premise of the Downtown Action Plan was to create urban living in our city center that didn't exist 20 years ago. It still doesn't exist at scale today, so that we could attract and retain talent.
Well, and isn't it also like the chicken and the egg type of conversation? Because as you know, your time in downtown, the number one thing people would say was like, there's not a grocery store. And like, there's Albertsons, which is the closest one, which isn't terribly far. But, in kind of that perception is reality type mindset, we know that rooftops have to exist before Rouse's or someone else builds a store. And so adding those things could, add to your development. I just think it's super interesting. And I'm happy that you challenged me on the real estate thing, because I probably represent that perception.
Sure.
That it's all full. It's all been built. Every song's been written in Lafayette. We just got to go rewrite over the same places. But, you bring up a great point. I mean, I think about even the stuff that's being done on the land by the Cajun Dome. Like, that was an open piece of property, and now the National Guard is having a building.
Yeah.
Behind that, there's a huge solar project that's happening there. So if the right thing comes along and it can be used, I mean, you bring up, I mean, how many times have we said, like, you didn't live in Lafayette if you didn't, like, pass through Bayou Shadows at some point in your life, but look at the location of it. Right? It's super convenient to get to Cajun Field to take the bus to UL.
Absolutely.
And so, man.
And so, was it Monday or was it Tuesday? It was Monday of this week. I was at the groundbreaking for the Bertrand Drive project. That's about to get initiated. And it was the first time I heard this out loud, and I loved it. Like, everyone kept saying connecting the athletic complex to Munkus Park, the UL athletic complex to Munkus Park. And the first person who said it at the groundbreaking, I think, was Tim Metcalf, who owns Dino's Pizza. And like, think about him sitting in the middle of those two major amenities in our city. And how many people go to both of those things many times a year? Munkus every weekend, and UL Lafayette's athletic complex as many times as they program it throughout the year.
Yeah.
But like, the back and forth doesn't really exist yet, because we haven't created the built environment where people will be like, "That's so close.
Yeah.
I could walk
And
there."
when you look at it on the map, it's right there.
It's right there. And so,
I saw some people in the comments, in the Facebook comments, which that's where all, the good stuff goes down.
That's an interesting place to live, in the Facebook comments.
The Facebook comments said, what about tailgating at Munkus Park? Because you have all the space, you even in like where the lawn is. Now, I don't want to get myself in trouble with the Munkus Park people.
I am not saying anything about tailgating at Munkus Park without checking with Victoria.
I'm just saying the idea that you could have a secondary spot. I mean, we've all been to LSU games. We know for a fact people walk 2 miles from a good parking spot so they can get out.
For sure.
I mean, it just opens it up.
I've talked to Ben Berth a lot about this ad nauseum. You go to a conference in any major city in the country, but even like cities more like our scale in the Southeast, you get off an airplane and you probably take some sort of shared, shared, I didn't want to like name drop, some sort of shared car.
$20?
Or a $60 Uber if you're talking about major.
That's where you are, yeah.
To the hotel where the conference is happening, and then you never get in a car again until you go back to the airport, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not
true.
saying we have to build exactly that. But what I am saying is we need a collection and connection amongst that collection of amenities to where people can start to experience the city differently. If we want to continue to grow, if we want to continue to keep talent here, attract talent to come, when we lived in Richmond for the 2 years, we could play on 6 different playgrounds within either a 10-minute bike ride or a 20-minute walk of our house.
Mm.
Like every neighborhood was
Yeah.
kind of fully built out
Yeah.
to where you could do that sort of thing, and you could kind of string your experiences along, and we could get all the way to downtown through VCU's campus, to downtown to have lunch at Penny Lane Pub that we loved, which, like we weren't just bike riding out there, we were doing things
It's
along
on
the
the
way
way.
and on
Yeah.
the way back. And so we can do that here in Lafayette too, but I think we need a mindset shift.
Yeah.
I think we need to build up some more of our gaps of amenities, and we certainly need to think about how to connect those amenities to each other. And so if we just start with things like from the athletic complex to Monkus, 2 amenities that already exist, they're pretty dang close to each other, and they have some great things in between, like Dino's and Patacone and others, and just make it
The goat.
easier.
The yard goat.
Goat.
Perfect
Yeah,
time day.
love that. Make it easier to get back and forth and help people understand how to do that. Awesome. And then is that scalable? Could we
Yeah.
do that on Johnston Street?
Anita Begnaud is here. Give me your title. What's on your business card?
I don't have a business card.
Okay, what do we say you
Sure.
do?
So I am the managing director of the Lafayette Resource Development Initiative, which is an initiative of the Community Foundation of Acadiana, and I'm focused on bringing external funding, primarily national foundation funding, to Lafayette projects.
Just such a fascinating conversation, not just because I love you to death and we've done this a million times. I want to ask as we wrap up here, you talked about, you have an almost 4-year-old. How has that changed sort of the purpose part of what you do that, there are people in this community whose names are on things and maybe it's not Anita Begnaud Park, but
Yeah.
you're putting your fingerprint on a lot of things. How do you think about that in sort of a Lafayette that you can leave to the next generation?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So, I've always had a passion for service and a passion for place. And I think even if I wouldn't have had children, that would have been true. And I would have been working really hard to improve this place. Cause like something just inside of me is like, that is what you do.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
what good is and what good looks like. But now having a daughter that like, I hope she wants to live where I live for the rest of her life. I hope that she can deeply immerse herself even more than I was able to, because Lyle and I are not from Lafayette. I'm from Church Point. He's from Brobridge. But we have decided that our home is Lafayette. I want her to make that decision consciously, and I'm not saying she has to live here every single day of her life to feel that. I didn't. I moved away for 2 years, and I'm happy I did. But I want her to know that this place is here for her. She can be super deeply rooted. She can immerse herself from birth in this culture. And La's a musician, so in the music world, if that's what she wants to do. But this place is here for her, and she is a part of it and is a part of her. I want there to be job opportunities when she graduates from college. I want her to be able to see herself and her life here for the rest of her life. If she decides to have different experiences, I will cheer her on, applaud her, and probably ask her if I can like sleep on her couch or whatever. But I do want to create the kind of place that she wants to be. And I think about so many people that I've been able to work under in my career. The people like the Joe Zankos that we talked about earlier, who served in leadership roles. Rob Eddy, who's the chairman of my advisory committee, in leadership roles in various civic and nonprofit and government organizations in our community. A lot of their children don't live here, and they desperately want their children to come back here. And now I've got this little girl that I'm trying to create a place that I hope she knows she doesn't have to ever leave. So it certainly has like sharpened my focus on the why. And it's helped me to understand the sense of urgency that I've seen in some other people. So I feel like it's just like propelled me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all hoping for you to be super successful, not just so you could stay here and be here, but so that we do see some of these projects come to life. And you know what? We want people from other places in the country to come visit Lafayette on their leadership
100%.
to see how we do things here. Anita Begnaud, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
Episode 1. I mean,
Just get started.
We got a lot of great things. Special thanks again to our friends at Catalyst Bank for making Kirkpatrick and Company finally possible after 6 years of brainstorming and trying and moving to new studios. It's here, and we're going to have some really great conversations this season.
This was really fun. Thanks, Rob.
Kirkpatrick and Company is recorded and produced inside the vault at Rock and Bowl in downtown Lafayette. Rock and Bowl is a Louisiana tradition, and their team is ready to host your next event in downtown Lafayette. Contact Robin at 337-534-8880 or visit rockandbowl.com. Rock and Bowl de Lafayette, a proud supporter of Kirkpatrick and Company.